What's up? I love that intro. It really kind of pumps you up. I was afraid we were going to change that library music, but it's actually pretty good. What's going
Yeah, I
on,
dig
guys?
it. What's up, man?
This is
Excited about
awesome.
this.
Welcome back. Welcome to the reboot of Panels and Frames. I can't say it's a new show, but it's our newest version of an old show that we started a while ago and then kind of fell off, and now we're bringing it back. So, welcome back.
A
Good to
lot
see
of
you guys.
excitement. A lot of excitement. We had a chat at one time that was Panels and Frames, and it came alive last night.
I know.
I can't believe we're going to try to fit all of this into a single hour. I mean, we haven't been able to talk about any of this stuff for a while, so it's going to be cool.
It's going to be
Glad
good. And, you know, that just gives us more to talk about next time or have extended shows for next time. I mean, I feel like this is one of those things, kind of like we do the microdoses one-off. Sometimes I feel like we can do some of those for these if anything breaks in entertainment news or something big happens, or, you know, after big movies come out, especially I know we'll have like our own whole show probably on Deadpool and Wolverine when that comes out. So
Probably many.
very true. I mean, we could spend a whole show talking about the trailer right now and everything. So yeah.
All right. So where do you want to start, man?
Let's get into it. Let's start where we should start, with the MCU news and the latest show, the one that has the highest rating of any Marvel show in history, with like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I know you're jonesing to talk about it, so I'll let you take the lead and go ahead and start.
Yeah, this is like probably the purest nostalgia hit I've had, right? Like all the other nostalgia things that have been going on over the last 10, 15 years, I've been adjacent to. I'm like, oh, I've seen other people do that. And like I was kind of into it. The original X-Men animated series in the 90s was like my, that was my introduction to nerdom, that my introduction to comic books. It was, I would say, without a doubt, like my favorite show in my the back end of my childhood. And so I had a lot of anticipation for this show coming up. And what's crazy about it is they fucking nailed it. And they didn't just keep it going. They hit the ethos of it, right? Like the memory of it, but then modernized it and brought in brand new animation and storylines. I have so much to talk about. I don't want to like hog the mic on it, but I think
it's a soap opera, man. It's like a soap opera.
Are a soap opera. They're always a soap opera. That's the point. The love triangle with fucking Jean and Cyclops and Logan, like that's the thing. Like,
isn't it a love rhombus?
Well, now it is.
Well, now it is.
Or, yeah, that was fun. No, but I mean, you need that. I think that was the problem with Singer and like the Fox X-Men was they went try to make it too serious, and it was appropriate for the time, right? But they went like the ultimate path, where like black leather serious. It was like the X-Men is colorful, it's dramatic. It's about passion. That's the other thing. This show is horny as fuck, and I'm glad they did it because it needed to be, because the X-Men is always has like a passion to it, a lust to it, and when you take that out of it, it falls flat. I think they nailed it. Absolutely.
I agree. I think so. I kept thinking that too the whole time. I was like, Jean's kind of hot. Like her outfits are great. And Storm, like Alex and I were even talking, I was like, Storm is just a badass. Like her hair and like so good. Like before she goes and loses her power, like spoilers, but before she loses her powers and comes back as Storm, like it was really very dynamic. And their outfits, yeah, like I know when Singer's moved, when the X-Men came out in the theaters, it was very much a thing. Oh, we're not doing the yellow and blue and blah, blah, blah. And I love seeing that Deadpool is doing that with Wolverine finally, as sort of a nod to that and a joke in it. But I think it's cool that this really encapsulates who the X-Men were at that time. And to your point, Tim, it does such a good job of staying true to that vision of the 97 version, and the voices and the direction we talked about a little bit yesterday. The direction is phenomenal. Like it's very cinematic. Like some of the shots and stuff feel very storyboarded out and directed and stuff, and very, very cinematic. Like I was really blown away by how cool some of the
but they also flash back.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw in an interview was because of modern technology and using the computers for the animation, they're able to keep the scale. And I would have never thought about this, but like the Sentinels, for example, they're able to hold the scale in all the shots. Whereas if you go back, and I didn't realize, but I went back and looked at old episodes, the Sentinels would be like 80 feet tall on one scene, and then they're walking through a shopping mall and they're like 20 feet. Then they're like 30 feet. And like it loses the magnitude and everything. So I think keeping that style with the modern technology and the extra frames and honestly the budget just elevated to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like the development in the technology and being able to do that now, which is even cooler that they still kept this vision true from the 97 and carried. That was my biggest thing, is like, well, is it going to look like it did back then, or are they going to modernize it and just call it X-Men 97?
Right, which would have stuck. Like if it looked like What If, which I think What If looks dope. Don't get me wrong, but if they made this look like What If, I don't think it would have worked.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And so, like, right from the beginning, I was completely drawn into it. Like, last night I ended up binging all of it to get through it. But it's fun because it's easy to binge. The storylines really are good. Like, it's a through storyline where things that happen in one episode carry over the whole time. There is one sort of one-off, but even in that one, you still get the Storm background storyline that's going on.
And I fucking love Mojo. I don't mean to cut you off, but I've seen so many people saying that was the weak spot of the season. And I get it because everything else is such fire. But like that was perfect too. Like that goes into the whole nostalgia thing of like playing Sega and like Nintendo and Mojo. Mojo was a badass. I loved like the gag of like Mojo being skinny. You're like, because Mojo was like always like this big fat, like, and like he was skinny. I really enjoyed that episode.
I liked it because you needed that Jubilee storyline. Like she needed it was nice to give her an episode because she ended up being such a main character throughout the season and had like an actual real arc with her character that was an important episode to put that in there where they did to build that character out. So it's not just a background character that's around and does things that you're like, oh, I never like what's her deal. No, like she actually
that's kind of what happened with Sunspot though. Unfortunately, I mean they did a little bit with his mom and like the coming out. So I guess if I had to be hypercritical, and here we go, after I'm just like, this is fucking incredible. The pace was a very nice turn from how the MCU has been over the last few years, because I felt like everything's been way too slow and like overexposed and everything. But because the pace, they went through like 7 huge story arcs in one season. I do feel like in a couple of spots, I would have liked a little more character development. I think the Jubilee Sunspot and like Sunspot with his parents, I think that whole storyline and thread could have really been developed a little bit more. I mean, they did a great job with Rogue and Gambit with Remy. Like that, I thought they nailed. And I thought fucking Storm and that whole storyline was really good. But a lot of the other characters, I was like, they didn't give you enough of it. But
well, say the thing that was different with Sunspot was they started with him though. Like he was one of the ones at the beginning that was rescued, and then they had the trepidation with like coming into the group and doing it.
He was like the modern Jubilee, because that's what Jubilee was in the early series.
Right. And so I feel like his development was kind of based on each episode going through it. He didn't get his full one episode devoted to him, but his was sort of like in through the series where they developed him, whereas like Jubilee got her main story, like main one episode about her, and then Sunspot just sort of like was there and like built his character, and then by the end he discovered, I can fly now and I've been tinkering with it, and like that kind of thing. I thought that was funny. Like
he's badass. Like, he's one of those like mega Omega level. Right. I don't know if he's. I don't want like the nerd police to come after me. I don't actually know if he's Omega, but like he's bad. I just want to say that he's badass in the comics. Like he's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Did you like Bright Eyes? Bright Eye?
Yeah, the revenge episode where Rogue is all fucking
I love
like
that.
Yeah.
Rogue's one of my favorites. She is
and again, just like tragic. I feel like she got done dirty in the movies, like it was such a subtle character in the movies and so not who she is, like this is such a good definition of who she is and shows her dynamic and another love triangle, so to speak, there with the three of them, and like you said, Tim, there's a lot of soap opera. There's a lot of love triangles. There's a lot of love going on between people.
And they weren't afraid to lean into it. And I'm so grateful they didn't. Like, yeah, it's not going to be for everybody. There's going to be people that are like, it's too much for me, but that's fine because it fucking works for the rest of us.
And it's good though. It's good. It's what it is. It's kind of that high school feeling, right? Like the whole thing is like, they're in this school or they were in this school and like, they've come like, so there is.
And we know teachers, right? Because they're all teachers too, right? And we know teachers, they get caught up in the drama, right? Like that shit. The juvenile thing like infiltrates their life. So it makes perfect sense that they're going to act and be dramatic like that.
Totally.
Yeah, and Mr. X was trying to get some too.
Yeah. I've never seen him in that light, dude. Those scenes were crazy. I was like, Yo, get you some. Good for you, man. He's always so mild. I mean, Patrick Stewart is like the perfect embodiment of him, but like I always just think of him as like this like Gandalf kind of like wise old professor, and like to see him being all like emotional and lustful. But good for you, man. Go for it.
Well, it develops that character too. It gives you a little bit more to look at to him instead of just always thinking of him as the old dude in the wheelchair that like uses his mind power to control things or do whatever. It gives him a little bit more ethos to that character and whatnot. And yeah, and same thing with even Magneto. Like it was cool seeing this sort of version of him and this badass, not older, version like Gandalf, literally like playing him. You know what I mean? Like it was actually really cool to see this version of him, this younger, like
I love they brought the island into it, the whole island thing.
Yep.
And...
Oh, the Genosha thing. Yeah, that was the best episode. So if I'm gonna say, and I will very easily say, this is the best X-Men adaptation and possibly top 10 comic book adaptations for me. Episode 5, remember, is by far the best episode of this adaptation, and that has everything to do with Genosha and the whole Magneto storyline and Gambit. I guess you know what? One of my maybe this is an issue. I don't know. Is the big bads, because they were all cool, but because they cycled through them so rapidly and had so many different things going on, I feel like the impact of their moves didn't really. Maybe I don't know if they didn't. Like they did in the moment, but like in hindsight, like Sinister led that whole Genosha thing, right? But like by the time that was processed, Bastion was fucking going, and then like by the time you're really like getting your head around Bastion, it's like Magneto's now like back to being bad. He went from like the savior back to being bad, and so I don't know. Maybe that was on purpose, but I felt like you could never really like lock in and be like, all right, now we're focused on this. This is the big bad, right? It was constantly.
It was sort of like that. Yeah, it did cycle through that a lot, and you never quite knew. And same thing was sort of like dying and coming back, who kept dying, who was not dead yet, who like, and to your point, we talked about backstage, like Gambit, you kept thinking would come back.
Every week I was like, all right, well, they'll bring him back. It was heart-wrenching, man. That's fucking...
that whole episode, like it's funny to get emotional in a cartoon, but like that whole 5th episode, especially like when Magneto's holding and he's like, don't be afraid or whatever, right before the big explosion, you're like, that's a little emotional. Like it was a little, it was a lot to take in.
They had lots of moments that hit serious tones and I think worked really well on an emotional level too. Not a lot, like they didn't overdo it. But like, and maybe it's different for different people, but like one of the scenes for me, I was just thinking about was when Jean, which actually was Madeline, we found out later, and Scott were in the hospital and they're like, we're not going to deliver your kid. I just like that hit me too. Cause like I had just done that this year and like had the kid. And it's like if you're not like, that's how hated the mutants are. Like, yeah, it's a, analogy for like, racism, but it's like to the point where it's like, you don't even deliver their kids, right? Like that is so fucked up and like it's so hard.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of. It was funny because watching it, there were a lot of almost like modern day overtones in it with those feelings of like even the fascism, even like the racism. Like there was a lot of that in it where you could be like, oh, this really relates to right now. Like go scroll Twitter and most of these topics are front and center right there. So,
but it did it in a way where they put the story first and the entertainment first, and they made it thought provoking. I think there is a place in entertainment for like lessons, right? And for political commentary. But when you just put it out there for the sake of putting it out there without any focus on, quality, it's actually detrimental to the cause that they're trying to do. Like this is a perfect example of how you could get people talking about and thinking about these like real life things without it being like, scolding and
they earned it. They earned it through the storylines and through the development and through the characters and all that stuff. Like it was built into that. So by the time you had those overtones, you didn't feel like it was hitting you over the head or forcing it on you. It was like they've earned that sort of way to talk about this or to like show this. And like again, it's not overtly, but just like that hospital scene, you're like, oh wow, this is like emotional, like this is something that's real, like this happened.
What do you think? I asked you guys last night, are you cheating if you sleep with a clone of your wife? But what about if you do find out and then you start hanging out with her telepathically? Are you cheating then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was rough. Like that
Well, it
was
depends on your agreement, but it seemed like it was implied that they made an agreement that they weren't going to do that. And that's their special thing, right? Like
Right.
that's not just hanging out. That's like doing their special thing that only they can do.
right. But I mean, it also had to be a little bit hard because, like, you know, he'd been so much with her and had a kid with her that they had to give away. And then she just like leaves. And then he's like, well, wait a minute. What about me? And then I have this other Jean who still has all those same memories and everything, but isn't the same woman that I was with. So I don't know. It was very tricky. But yes, Kev, I think at that point it is cheating.
That whole idea of neither one of them knowing that
And a shout out,
the whole idea behind it is so mindfuck of.
Yeah.
What up, Kev?
a shout out to the development of Cyclops in this too, because he was glossed over in the movies, and I feel like we really got a good look at him in this.
Yeah, and I love how people in the first two episodes were like, wow, he's badass, because like they give him the landing and the fight scenes where he's like pushing himself with the beams. But like, in my opinion, he's kind of a bitch in the comics a little bit. And I actually appreciate that they went right back to showing that he's also kind of a bit. Like he's bad. It's the weirdest dichotomy with him of all characters, but he's like, he's badass, but he's a bitch.
He's
like
a
he is
bitch.
still
I
kind of a
texted you.
bitch.
I know. I texted you. I meant to. It was supposed to send last night, but I didn't send till this morning. But as soon as I finished the series, I was like, Cyclops is like my least favorite. He's such a bitch. Like sometimes he's like cool, but then he's like whiny, and then he's so upset that he wasn't in charge, and then he's like, well, I'm still gonna lead, and then he like doesn't know what to do, and then he's in this love triangle and walks away, and then he gets mad at me. I'm like, dude, suck it up and be a man. Like, come on, like go take care of your shit. You know, like. Yeah,
his storyline with Emma, like, so he definitely, I don't know, like, I'm not an expert on that, but like from what I've read, his storylines with Jean and Logan, he falls into that role a lot. But there's a whole nother run where he's with Emma Frost and Jean's not there, and I think he's a lot more. I mean, he's still kind of a dick, but he's way cooler, I think. So I think in the comic books they do him more justice, and I'm kind of hoping actually for the X-Men movie. That is coming up and got announced that they go that route, like where they have some of the legacy characters, but introduce new stories and new teams, and don't just repeat the X-Men97 team, you know,
well,
verbatim.
I mean, that's a good transition out of this into the next one. But real quick, I do want to say they're already editing season 2 for X-Men97, and there's already a plan for season 3 that gets set up sort of with this one and what's going to happen in season 2. So there is more X-Men97 to come, and I think obviously with it being the highest rated Marvel show, we can expect more of that, and probably sooner rather than later, to keep it going and fresh and everything. But I think it's awesome that it's so well received, that it was done so well, and that it will continue. So,
and what's cool is Bo DeMeo, who got fired, but he did finish writing season 2. So I don't know. I'm nervous about season 3, right? Like the characters in and of itself isn't enough to make it great. Like you need good writing, but at least we have another season with his vision. I don't know what he did to get fired, so I'm not going to take a stance either way. But as far as strictly his production and like what he produced and wrote, he fucking nailed it. Hit it out of the park. He must have done something really fucked up. Like it couldn't have been like a money thing, right? Like after the success of this, I imagine Disney would have thrown the whole bank at him.
Right. Totally.
It'd be interesting to see if we ever find out what he did.
Completely.
What do you want to go on to? You want to?
Well, I was gonna just say, finishing up with the X-Men 2, because you brought it up, that when they talked about the next movie, is they're trying to focus on more minor characters, as opposed to your typical Wolverine and Scott and Professor X and those guys. So maybe we will see more character development from the background characters or the other characters in the X-Men, which would be cool, which I think would be a lot of fun to get sort of those mutants involved in it and their powers and stuff, instead of like the same old that we've seen forever with them. So
yeah, and I mean, as much as like I love Jean and I love the whole Phoenix saga, with Fox having fucked that up, not like multiple times, right? Over and over and over again, I think they need to just shelve her for a little bit and go into the other depths of the stories and not try to do a 5th or 6th or 7th. I don't even know how many times they've done the Phoenix, but
let me ask you, what, we had the singer slash with what's his name doing X-Men 3 that was just an abomination, which was terrible. But those 3 movies, and then the reboot series, which started out pretty good, the Days of Future Past and things like that. That started out
First
decent.
Class was okay.
Yeah, and First Class was decent, but then we kind of fell into like a
Sophie
messy
Turner
situation.
X-Men was fucking atrocious. I'm
the
sorry.
Dark Phoenix, and then even the Apocalypse storyline that they did that one for, like they couldn't get it. Like it was like they kind of started well with them, but then it sort of fell off and turned into these like messes. So I think that's one reason, just like they did with Spider-Man, when they finally got Spider-Man over into the MCU from Sony, instead of doing an origin storyline and, you know, the whole getting bit by the spider and developing it, they just sort of like dropped him in there and let it go and just like started from there instead of having to do it. So I feel like with the X-Men, hopefully that's what they're going to do, is just sort of start it from a point where maybe those characters have already moved on, or something's already happened to the big ones, and we're getting into the minor characters to start. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they do it, balancing the Fox X-Men and the new X-Men and the multiverse. And hindsight's 2020, but they kind of screwed the pooch on that. They should have just started the MCU X-Men as soon as possible and not gone into this like multiple versions. But I don't know. I think that could be another time.
Well, once it kind of gets closer to coming out too, we'll kind of get more information on that and see what they do. And again, same thing with kind of the Fantastic Four, right? Like there's been multiple movies done by Fox with that never quite. The first one was okay, but you go back and watch it now and it's not so great. Then the Silver Surfer one was pretty bad.
Like, X-Men was better than the Fantastic Four movies.
Oh, for sure. And
like
then the
X2 and Logan and Deadpool, they were all fucking great movies. A lot of them sucked, but none of the Fantastic Four movies have been good. Like they haven't even been close to being good. What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Fantastic Four? Or do you want to talk about Deadpool?
Let's jump into Fantastic Four because we'll probably spend more time on Deadpool. So let's just talk about this real quick and we can, move past it. I think Fantastic Four is going to be very fun. I think using obviously just the logos, just the key art from it already looks fantastic, and this whimsical sort of 50s look to it I think is going to be fun. So I'm really interested to see how it's going to develop into the movie, and the casting is just phenomenal. Even the background characters they're getting, they just signed Natasha Lyonne into it. John Malkovich is going to be in it, which fantastic. I think, obviously the leads with Pedro Pascal and who they got in the leads will be awesome. So it'll be a little bit different, and seeing how they build out that storyline and those characters and where it's going to fit into the timeline and how it's going to rev up into Secret Wars and all of that stuff.
If it's back in the 60s, it's going to fall in between the original one with Miss Marvel and the Captain America, right? It would be like the second.
It's going to be cast in a different universe.
Yeah, it'll be in a different universe.
Yeah,
it'll be a different Earth.
But I'm glad that they're doing the time period piece, and
so it's an origin story.
No, actually, what's cool about it, this is all rumors right now, but is that they're going to already be married with kids, which is going to be fucking awesome.
So it's Secret Wars. It's the Secret Wars line then.
It very well could be the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four leading up to Secret Wars, with like the Council of Reeds and then actually with the Ultimates, like that, there is some cool shit they could do with that. I don't know if they'll go that far into it, but Nathaniel Richards and not Nathaniel,
Reed.
Fuck. No. The son,
the kid, right?
Yeah. Fucking so powerful, like nothing we've seen in the MCU at all.
Are we getting Silver Surfer?
Female.
Yeah,
it's a female Silver Surfer. Yeah, they cast her too, and they haven't. I don't know if they've announced the director, but I sent you guys. They announced the cinematographer, Jess Hall, who's done some of the WandaVision.
Franklin.
Did a lot of Franklin. That's
brain.
It, yeah.
Nathaniel was his dad. Franklin is his son. My brain.
But Jess Hall did some of the WandaVision, which when you go back and look at the 50s versions and some of the old school WandaVisions, I think is a perfect choice. He also did the Monarch Legacy of the Monsters TV show on Apple, which was a lot of fun and really good. If you haven't watched that, it's really, I'll go off on a tangent, but it's really cool because they have Kurt Russell and his son in that, and Kurt Russell's son plays a younger version of Kurt Russell in that show, and they kind of do a time jump where like he's in the past and Kurt Russell's in the present. So it's really cool, kind of. It's a fun show, but he's a great cinematographer, and I think that is going to lend itself brilliantly with what they're trying to do with that show, with that movie. So I think it'll be very cool.
I wish that part of me wishes that it could be separate from the multiverse. And I get like they already had an established universe because of licensing and Fox, like they have to be creative with it. But the idea of them not being able to return to their universe and going into like being out of place, I feel like it's gonna take away, it potentially could take away from, I don't know. Like I almost wish that they could just start over and have like a new Iron Man with a new Reed, because the Fantastic Four is awesome, like the first family, and I like their comics. But for me, they're really great when they're interacting with everybody else, when they're interacting with the X-Men, when they're interacting with the Avengers. And like I feel like them not being from the same universe as our new Avengers is going to feel weird, right? Like it's like, oh, it's like you guys, like kind of like the Guardians were, right? Like they were like part of it, but like they were always like their own side thing. The Fantastic Four aren't supposed to feel like a side group. Like they're supposed to be like the hub of all the teams, right? Like the Baxter Building is, you know what I mean? Like that's very much supposed to be the core. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop all that shit. Sorry, I'm just ranting now on random thoughts I have about the Fantastic Four.
Well, I think everything will become a little bit clearer because I'm very interested to see how Secret Wars gets set up and what's going to happen with the multiverse and where we're at. I think after Deadpool and Wolverine, we'll sort of have a little bit clearer of a vision of what's happening with all that. I think this is sort of the mop up, the cleanup of everything, sort of like getting us back to it. And I know, they're doing their best in these press things and everything with the interviews with the guys to not give away anything. They keep asking, is Taylor Swift in it? Is, Doctor Strange in it?
It's 100% in it. There's
100%.
no way she's
Taylor
not
Swift,
in it.
the Phantom Blonde.
And I think, with them asking Doctor Strange, oh, is that you that opens the portal? And he's like, oh, like very cryptic answer of like, oh, well, someone's got one of the things that opens. So I think it's going to be like a laundry list of celebrities that are in this thing and like people that are in it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but most importantly is what it's going to set up, I think, and where it resets us or sets us going forward with everything. I think is going to be huge. And I would not be surprised if this version of Wolverine is back at some point in Secret Wars or in another Marvel movie, because it's just like X-Men97, when this thing blows the box office up and it's already set a record for pre-sale tickets, it's going to be huge.
Did you get tickets yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, I was going to do it this weekend, I think. I'm fucking hyped. I don't think I have to. Like, I'm sure I'll be able to get good seats opening weekend, but like, I just wanted to be able to like say I have them and like look forward. They're selling like crazy.
Like I said, it's already set records for pre-sales. Fandango, it's like the highest ranking movie. It broke whatever was before that it's on Fandango. So it's like,
and it's outpacing Deadpool 1 and 2 already.
Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be, again, as epic, I think, as we hope it's going to be. And what it sets up, I think, will be the most important thing. So it'll be really interesting to see where we go from there and what's in store with it. But I mean, the fun that they're having with it is fantastic. I mean, they put a QR code in that last trailer that when you go to that, it's like a disclaimer from Ryan Reynolds about the movie. They released the ridiculously hilarious synopsis. Like the
commercials are funny, like the fucking Heineken commeral. Like, I hope they just keep doing that for the next 2 months.
The two of them are just having so much fun doing it. And reading that thing about Hugh, where he was literally driving in his car and was like, I want to do another movie. Like, I want to do this, and called Ryan and was like, let's do it. And then called his agent and was like, hey, I just agreed to do this movie. Let's get it done. So I think his hype for doing it is awesome. And it was funny because they said, they're not touching Logan. They're not touching that old storyline. So it was very important to him to keep that as is. And like you said, Tim, Logan is one of the best comic book movies ever made. And so not to
I think it probably is my number one, or if you discount Endgame's like Big Cypress, right? Like it's hard to like compare Endgame to other movies, but if you take out Infinity War Endgame, I think Logan's my favorite comic book movie. Like it's definitely up there.
It's definitely up there. It's brilliant. It's so good. And Mangold did such a good job with that storyline and the death and all of that. But I really appreciate them saying that's done, right? Like that's in this other world. That's finished. And I think that lends itself to why he's in the yellow and blue too, right? This is a different Wolverine.
It's a different one, down and out, fucked up. I imagine the story is going to be all like, because there's in the comic books where, not Magneto, the fucking villain from Spider-Man that we just saw in the last Spider-Man movie, Mysterio. It gets in his head and gives an illusion, and he kills all the X-Men, and he gets like super fucking depressed.
Right.
And like there's a lot of scenes from the trailers that like lend itself to that storyline, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's just go like very dark, down and out, and do the buddy cop thing. Oh, it's
totally.
awesome.
And there's rumors of multiple Wolverines in it, played by maybe Daniel Radcliffe or Taron Egerton or like
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill. So
he should be Cyclops though. When they were talking about the casting rumors, I was like, that's how you get a badass Cyclops. They fucking like, I know the guy in the Bryan Singer ones, you like him as an actor, but like he doesn't look like a fucking superhero.
No,
right?
And he was so young in those too that even going back, I was like, holy shit, that's James Marsden. Like I was blown away when
he didn't look like the leader of the X-Men. You need fucking like Henry Cavill, like ripped as a motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like Cyclops needs to be badass. That's how he gets away with being a bitch. If he's just a bitch, then it doesn't work, right?
Well, and he needs to be comparable to Wolverine, right? Like, because they got
to be equal head to head.
Right. And Marsden was never equal to Hugh Jackman, and they never played it like that either. Like they gave Hugh all the alpha and like Cyclops barely even the beta. So it was like very one-sided in that.
He was like, oh, please don't take my glasses. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right. It never worked. And then the Famke Jensen, Jean Grey was even more powerful than him. Like she was.
Well, she is super fucking powerful. And
right.
badass.
But the actress wise, she was more on the side of like being equal with Hugh Jackman than James Marsden at the time. So
he didn't have an equal level with her.
Right.
He needed to be in that triangle on equal leg.
Right.
And those two actors and the way they portrayed the characters were up here. I'm not used to the frame being that small. And he was down here.
And we could even argue, as we did before, that Halle Berry's character as Storm was so underutilized and kind of weak. Like she never got the momentum to be the goddess and like this powerful thing that she is. She was very much like kind of whiny and on the sides and stuff. It just that bothered me.
Not going back to 97 is what I liked about it so much, is they really leaned into her being Omega level, which technically I don't think she was Omega before this. I think this was like the first time that they like said it like that, but like really leaned into her being as powerful as she is.
Yep.
Low key, my biggest wish, and I haven't heard anyone say this, and I've heard no rumors, but I would love Ryan Reynolds at some point in Deadpool to erase Secret Invasion and just say like, oh, that's out of the chronology. Like you don't have to watch that, because as bad as Phase 4 was, and a lot of people don't like it, I think a lot of it set a lot of good shit up, and I enjoyed. Right, like I enjoyed Ant-Man. Thor, I thought was fucking terrible, but you can't touch that. But like I really love Shang-Chi. The only one that I think you have to remove in order to fix things is Secret Invasion. Like that legitimately fucked things up. So I really hope that he's just like breaking the fourth wall or whatever with his powers, could just be like snip it out, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because it also led into one of the worst performing movies, which was the Marvels, right? Like I didn't mind the movie,
which I liked. I actually enjoyed the Marvels, but Secret Invasion did not do.
But it set that up, and it just kind of set it up for failure, because it didn't lead you into it to be like, oh my god, I got to go see this, because of what it left me with a Secret Invasion. It just kind of was like very. And it was a fun movie. It was good. It just did not
enjoyable.
perform.
I loved it. I think a lot of people got butthurt because it was 3 chicks.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. There was definitely that whole campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that hate was way overstated. But if you remove all of that, I don't think it was the best comic book movie. But I certainly don't think it was as bad as everybody said. I think it was just a fun, enjoyable time. Like you had a good time watching it.
And I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but it was on the list of one of the top 5 bombs of last year. And also on that list, as Kevin and I talked about before, was The Flash, which was another fantastic comic, probably the best DCU movie they've made. It was incredibly well done and a great homage to the old Flashes. And they did a really cool thing with the multiverse, which I know Marvel's been struggling with, but they did an amazing job.
Michael Keaton, I mean, come on.
And had those worlds where like they showed the old Flash with the tin hat on, like running, and then the older versions, and all the old versions of Superman were in it, and had the giant worlds colliding. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was
they were bringing everything together, and then they decided to scrap it all
of it. And maybe I went into it expecting it to be so bad because of the reviews and everything with it, but I was so blown. I mean, Michael Keaton's my favorite Batman. I know we talked about before, like The Dark Knight being the best, my favorite comic book movie, right up there with Logan, but Michael Keaton's my Batman. And so to see him come back in that role and play it so well, it was a lot of fun. The movie just had a lot against it. The DC is falling apart. Fucking Ezra
There's
Miller's a
no
schmuck.
motivation to see it. They were like, "Oh, we're changing everything after this." I haven't seen it, and even though you guys are like standing hard for it, I still don't have a ton of motivation to go fucking watch it because it's like,
Now
it's worth it. It's worth the 2 hours.
To watch it because you don't have to. The nice thing about that too is you can just watch it as its own standalone movie at this point. You don't have to worry about it leading into anything or doing anything for you. So just be like,
I like that. I like it. I know that they're gonna fucking Marvel's all like, hey, we're gonna have all this shit that you don't have to watch everything, and I'm like, that's fine to like onboard people and like you can't have it be too complicated. But don't forget about the hardcore fans that have been there all along and watched every fucking second of Secret Invasion, even though it sucked. Like, don't forget about us. Like, keep this shit connected and moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that announcement that came out the other day going forward that they're going to do 2 TV shows a year, whatever it's going to be with the movies and the animation stuff, but you don't have to watch everything to lead into other things. I get why they're saying that, but at the same time, that's what made the MCU
because of Secret Invasion.
Right, because of Secret Invasion. Nobody watched it. It sucked.
Right. And so but that's what made the MCU so great was everything being connected and having the Avengers show up in other movies and having Tony Stark in the Spider-Man movies and like having these crossovers that meant something because it made it fun to like connect things and be like, oh, this happened in that. So now it makes sense that this is happening in that. But
I eventually want an evil Robert Downey to come back as Iron Man as Doom's henchman. We got to bring that line into it.
Yeah, it would be cool.
That would be cool.
Although I don't know that they're going to bring RDJ back in that kind of role. Like, I feel like they're saving that up to such a momentous thing that it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they will. I don't know what the fuck they're going to do. I do feel now like all bets are off and like finally there's like this level of hype returning in large part due to Deadpool and X-Men97 and things getting shaken up. I actually liked Kang as a character. I don't love what they did, but like it was weighing this shit down. It was too complicated, right? Like trying to put all that time travel with multiverse, right? And all that together was just too much and weighing it down. Like simplify that shit, get X-Men in there, get Doom in there ASAP, and fucking just go with these crazy new stories.
I like Kang. I like the whole the Ant-Man thing.
The quantum
verse.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed that movie and I get where they're going. Like I believe that idea of like him being shrunk down, he would come back as like a Beyonder Kang and like being, and maybe he still is going to, but like he was weak, man. Fucking Loki beat him. Some ants beat him. Like he just kept getting beat. And like after Thanos
ants beat him.
Like after Thanos was as badass as he was, you can't have the big
dude. Ants are badass.
Him as that was the problem is there was a information flood. Like they announced so many movies and they announced so many plans. Just wrap that shit up. Don't say. I mean, information leaks are impossible to avoid now, so it was going to get out either way. But I don't know.
I really like. I mean, I thought the best thing that they did though was, I mean, and it made it a little confusing now at the end, but the Loki series did such a good job of trying to explain
wrap all that shit up,
the time variance and like all of that thing with it. And I mean that series, those 2 seasons were, I mean, that last season was so well done, so brilliant, so much fun, so good. It just, to your point, yes, but that's what also made Kang kind of fun in those was like having those variants of him and the Man at the End of Time and that kind of thing, and setting up the Wasteland and all of that stuff was so cool to see. And kind of like these nuggets that I think carry over now in Deadpool and Wolverine, like where some of this is going to be based and like what's going on with it. And, you know, I was at the Loki panel and they asked if he's going to be in Deadpool or how this relates to where he's at now. And, you know, Owen Wilson was sitting next to him and he was like, oh, get ready for some serious sidestepping here. And like, sure enough, they couldn't really say anything about it. But, and actually, if you want, you can go on the PaleyFest YouTube channel and the whole panel discussion is up now on there. So for free, and you can watch it. It's fun.
Maybe we'll
really
share that link.
Out. But yeah, I think Loki was one of the pinnacles of what they did with the MCU throughout this whole thing. Like, I think that really set up nicely because, to your point, Tim, it was getting a little confusing with bringing in the multiverses, bringing in the time jumps, bringing in where in time are we and in what universe are we, and like how is this, and then
like the sub universe with like the realms, and then they were doing the astral planes. Like you had the Black Panther astral plane, then you had like Eop and like the fucking Moon Knight astral plane. and then you had the fucking Jin and Miss Marvel,
Right.
and that changed the time travel rules that they established in Endgame. So not only are you combining multiversal travel with time travel, but you're changing the rules as you're going. And like, what the fuck were you guys thinking? Just stop and just pick one path and do that. Like,
well, I think
and you're throwing Doctor Strange in with bringing, you know, all the Spider-Mans together. You know?
Right, and then fucking Shang-Chi going into a different dimension. What was that? Was that like a realm, or was that a universe, or was that a different timeline? It was like, and they never gave continuity to it.
Very muddled in there. And you had the Eternals, which, I mean, I guess hopefully
I like the Eternals.
Hopefully that's supposed to be the new base, is what they've rumored. Like that's the celestial that they, you know, that like is in the ocean that we haven't seen since then. It's supposed to
that's gonna be the new Genosha.
Probably, yeah, right. The new
or where they get adamantium. Oh man.
Which I think they've kind of maybe started to tease in what's the tease that Francis Pugh showed us of the Thunderbolts? Is that the one?
Oh, Thunderbolts Astrich. Yeah, that's gonna be in there.
So, are we getting Namor?
Yeah, Namor's coming back.
Yeah,
Namor was a huge part of Secret.
Didn't somebody else buy? Didn't somebody else own him though?
Yeah, that was the problem. Something with that. Yeah, but he is coming back. I did read that he will be back in things. Yeah, so. There's a lot, but again, it got so convoluted and so crazy because they tried to do so many movies to appease so many things that it just became this mess. So it's kind of a good thing that they're stepping back and, like, you know, kind of reorganizing everything. But again, it's kind of a shame that you don't need to watch everything to have it all connect in a way. Which
they are coming close to being able to connect a lot of things, though, because that whole Eternal storyline with the X-Men, they could go into Judgment Day, and all the shit they're doing with Wanda and fucking what's the new show?
Vision,
Agatha. And then Vision. Like that's said that actually, let me pull that up because we could talk about that. But that can both set up Young Avengers and West Coast Avengers, because like with the Young Avengers, Vision's like the head dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like they've definitely been setting up Young Avengers. And
then, and they
West
said
Coast Avengers.
Kate Bishop's coming back for Avengers, so she'll be in it. So I think we'll see that. And I think, the VisionQuest thing, which again, it's a little ways out, 2026, I believe, is when that show's scheduled to come now. But that makes sense because everything that'll happen in the next 2 years will hopefully set up what is coming for him and what he's going to lead and where he's going to be at that. And Paul Bettany's back, which is awesome.
Do we know if Wonder Man is set to happen before or after VisionQuest?
I don't know.
Because their stories, talk about soap operas, but like Scarlet Witch, Wonder Man, and Vision in the comics, that's a fucking crazy ass triangle. And I hope those two shows are fairly connected. You know?
No, totally. And the guy again, you know, Terry, I can't even pronounce his name. Terry Matalis or something is doing the show running for it, and he's done like Star Trek Picard. He's done a lot of cool TV shows. Like he's got a huge list of TV shows that he's done. So I think he's a great pick for this. And I love the people that they're grabbing to do these shows and these storylines and stuff are really top notch, like producers and showrunners and people that have, you know, a history of making good TV and shows that like kind of fit in these visions that they want to do. So it's proper. I think they're doing a good job of sort of resetting, so to speak, what they're doing. And I think it's a good
showrunners and treating it like TV shows instead of trying to do whatever they want. They had an article with Windabaum, one of the producers, recently on, I think it was Variety. It was like, coming off of Endgame, we felt we could do whatever we want. Like he literally says the mentality was do whatever you want. And now they're like, well, we can't do that anymore.
Well, we
got to be judicious about it.
And for a lot of it, they just assign directors and sort of creative executives, which is always a bad idea, into the positions of the creative and running the shows, which not having a dedicated showrunner or a dedicated person that's in charge of it, that is his vision and what he's written and in charge of the writer's room and all of that, fucks up everything. Because then you have like one person's vision fighting the executive's vision, and it never works out. So to kind of reset that table and have dedicated showrunners for the shows and guys that actually make the show, running the show, will help a ton. And we'll see that. So I think it's good. It's very good.
I agree. Let's move on. We're going to run up against it.
Oh, yeah.
Can we do a couple of rapid fires?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think this is one of the things I'm actually super fucking excited about, but Sony always knows how to fuck shit up. Like getting Nicolas Cage and partnering with Amazon for a dark Spider-Verse
noir
like that is a ton of fucking potential.
Ton of potential.
I hope, and I don't know. I haven't heard of Vision, but I hope it's disconnected from like the Madam Web and Venom and Craven. Like that shit sucks so bad. I hope this is its own new thing on Amazon, and we could actually get some really good, fresh Spider-Man content. But that looks badass.
I hope so. I think that would be really cool. And real quick question: I saw this on Twitter the other day, but your favorite Peter Parker out of the 3 Spider-Man trilogies that we've had, your favorite, not Spider-Man, but your favorite Peter Parker. Go, Kev.
The first one.
Tobey Maguire?
Yeah, Tobey Maguire. Definitely.
Okay. Oh, dogs are going crazy. What about you, Tim?
This is not a 100% sincere answer, but I have to go with Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield. Garfield. Why did I just think of Garfunkel? And yeah, his redemption of catching MJ in this one after dropping Gwen, like when he dropped Gwen, that was one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the movie, even though those movies weren't that great. And like his redemption arc, and he's just I feel like he got done dirty with the timing of those movies. I love Tom Holland. I love Toby, but I'm going to go with Andrew.
That's funny. I was going to go with Tom. So we all 3 have a different opinion. I was going to go with Tom Holland just because I loved the way that he portrays Peter as I always saw Peter in the comics, like this fun kid, this sort of high school, not Tobey Maguire was a little more esoteric and a little bit more serious. Andrew was kind of the not really scientific, but like the nerdier one of them. And Tom Holland was just sort of that kid that I always imagined Peter to be, just like that fun, whimsical. I want to be this, I want to do that, and like the way he joined the Avengers and like Mr. Stark and like to me and the comedy in it. And I think it was the way it was written and whatever for him, but he just kind of portrayed the vision of Peter that I always kind of saw in the comics. So,
but to that point, that is why I'm so fucking excited about a Nicolas Cage Spider-Man. Because one thing we haven't gotten a lot of was adult Spider-Man.
Yes.
And like working at the Daily Bugle and like doing like the photography, like kid Spider-Man's cool. Like, and I like that, but we've had so much of it.
Yes.
And there's a lot of awesome stories with him and MJ and like as a married man and like as a broke ass fucking photographer doing. And so I think exploring though, and I hope that Tom Holland's character, they keep him on for 6 more movies and they do the college years and then they do like the adult years. Right, and just do it for the next 20 years. I don't give a shit because I want to see adult Spider-Man in the movies.
I agree, and I think Nicolas Cage will be great in it. But yeah, that's fun that we all 3 had a different version of the Spider-Man that we like. That's what's great. That's what it's about. All right,
let's keep going. Rapid fire.
Where's the phone booth?
Yes, that's the question we all have to ask. Like.
And why the fuck isn't he saving the world? Like, there's like an attack. He's just like, I got
he's very slowly putting his boot on. I'll get there in a minute.
Fuck, I gotta work again, man. Shit.
And look, he's already dirty and shit. So, like, why is he putting on his like dirty suit? Isn't his suit clean? Like, I don't know. I had so many problems with this release. It just.
I don't think it was super well thought out. I mean, I guess the cool thing is that none of this is touched up. None of this was like produced as a promo shot. It was just a fresh shot, unedited, untouched. And so, like, in that context, if you like ignore the story and all the other shit, and it's just like, hey, this is just like a set photo, I guess that's kind of cool, right? But I don't think that. I think James Gunn kind of missed the mark on this one, where he was like, I think it's low. It's like the Evolve of the DCU. It's like they released the single, and it kind of lowered my hype a little bit.
I don't know. I lowered my hype too. And I don't know. I'm sure Gunn, he'll do a good job with it, with his vision and creating it. It's just another Superman, another fucking, like hopefully it does like Spider-Man did. And you just drop him in. You don't need the origin story. You don't need all that crap. But I mean, it's hard to keep having all these different versions of Superman between the TV shows, even the young one in Smallville. Henry Cavill, I loved him as Superman. I thought he was a great Superman. So losing him in this role now kind of sucks. So,
and we lost him as the Witcher. Fucking, I hope to God there's a rumor that he's going to come out and do a Warhammer thing, which I don't think you guys are into that, but I fucking love Warhammer. Yes. I hope he does that. That'd be so badass.
Yes.
I'm trying to fly through.
Oh yeah, we can touch on Khan real quick. Francis Ford Coppola's Megapolis premiered out there. It's gotten crazy mixed reviews, from its genius to it's absolutely batshit crazy, kind of like what my dogs are doing right now. So we'll see. I'm excited to see it. It took a little bit to get a distributor and everything, but you know,
what are you most excited about that came out of the Festival de Cannes?
Honestly, Furiosa this week. I am so excited to see Furiosa.
That looks so
tomorrow
cool.
night.
That looks so
I
cool.
cannot fucking.
You're going
wait.
tomorrow?
Like, yeah. George Miller is I don't know how he creates what he creates. Like, it's just to have that vision in your head and then be able to translate that onto screen is amazing. I wrote a hilarious little quote the other day from like Tom Hardy that was like, "Oh, we all hated each other on the movie." Charlize Theron was like, "It was the worst experience. Like everyone was arguing." Anna Joy Taylor just a 10,000-yard stare, and then Hemsworth is like, "Whatever, I got to make a movie in the desert. It was awesome, mate." You know, because like he's Australian until he gets George's vision, does it, and like everyone else is like, "What the fuck are we doing with these two movies?" But I'm excited as hell. So
yeah, I love Chris Hemsworth.
I'm just glad they brought Thor back.
and in a cool role. Like he looks like such a badass in this. Like I can't wait. And the way it's going to connect to Fury Road, I'm very excited. It's a prequel to Fury Road. I think it looks awesome. The other two I wanted to touch on real quick from Con was Sebastian Stan, our boy, the Winter Soldier, in the Trump film that has gotten a lot of interesting feedback and shit. Like that'll be interesting to see. And then Kevin Costner's freaking ridiculous 4-part Horizon epic Western.
Got like 20-minute or 15-minute.
I just don't believe Kevin Costner. Like Waterworld, I didn't believe. When he does something, I'm like, eh.
I totally hear you. And even Dances with Wolves was great, and I feel like this will be on that vein. But he's just so hard. Like it takes a lot to break that barrier to get into believing him, right? Like it's hard.
This is the kind of role that he could do. Like if he's gonna do it, it's gonna be in this kind of role.
I agree. I agree. But the funny thing is all the American movies that we just talked about, none of them got a great reception. Like they got the ovations and everything, but nothing has gotten a huge good reviews. Like most 2 to 3 stars, some 3.5, some 4s, but nothing has been like blown away. Like Fury Road got way better reviews than Furiosa's gotten from coming out of Con. Megapolis has its issues. All of these kind of have a little bit of issues, but it'll be interesting to see how everything does at the box office.
I mean, they're no X-Men97. What can you expect?
Right.
You're not going to come out the gate with 100%.
Right. So, yes.
Cool. Well, this was fun. I think we should do this. We want to do it at the same time, same place next week.
Fuck yeah, this is
same
awesome.
Time, same bad channel, dude. You missed it.
We
same
still
time,
have lots
same bad channel.
We still have lots to discuss, and next week we'll have even more to discuss. So come back.
Jeff had perfect connection and had nothing to say. We didn't let him get in.
Love it. Later, thanks for watching.